Hey, I'm Magic Mike, and I'll strip it down for you. What is wholesaling? Maybe you've heard about it. Maybe you've heard about house flipping. Maybe you've seen these TV shows about it where these cash buyers, as we call them in the business, come in, buy a house cheap, pay cash. They put money into it, they repair it up, they fix it up, and then they sell it retail with a realtor. Okay, but what would you say if I told you that you could be that middle person in between the motivated seller, as we call them in the business, and the cash buyer? Maybe you've heard about this on the radio where they say, we're looking for a handful of motivated individuals to add to our real estate investing team. And then you go to the free educational workshop. And then, of course, they try to sell you on other stuff too. And then you start learning about wholesaling. Okay? What wholesaling is where you're the middle person in between the two. So you do all the groundwork to find the seller, and you get it under contract with the seller at a price, and then you go to the cash buyer and you sell it to him at a higher price. So essentially what you're doing is you're obtaining exclusive rights to purchase the property, and then you're selling those rights to the cash buyer. Okay? Now a lot of cash buyers, they're lazy. Really, they don't want to put out bandit signs, they don't want to send out mailers, they don't want to do any of that stuff that you need to do to bring in the sellers in. Okay? So as an example, let's say you get a property under contract at $30,000 with the seller. You've got it under contract. Only you can purchase that property. But instead of closing on it, you're going to wholesale it to a cash buyer. Okay? Now you're not going to market the property because you don't own the property. You are going to market that contract. You're going to sell him the right to close on that property. You're going to sell it to him. You're going to add an extra $10,000 on top. You're going to sell it to him for $40,000. Okay, so you take both of those contracts, you put them together, you fax them to the closing attorney. He gets them, sets up the closing. The cash buyer shows up, puts the money down. Seller shows up, sells the property, gets their half, and then at the end of the day, you get a check for $10,000. Right? That's just an example. You may not get that much. You may get more. That is what's called an assignment. So you have the purchase agreement with the seller. You have the assignment agreement to the cash buyer. You are assigning that contract with the seller to the buyer. Okay? All contracts can be assigned unless otherwise stated. You can do this in all 50 states except for Ohio. Ohio has a strict law that states that you must have a license in order to broker a deal. Technically, that's considered brokering a deal. You're between, because you're the middle person, right? You're between the two. You're brokering that deal. You need a license. If you can't get a license, there's another thing called a double close, where you close on that contract with the seller getting what's called transactional funding. So you borrow money from, say, a cash buyer, close on that property. That's what we call the A to B, right? Close on that. Then you, the same day, hopefully, or within the first week, because you're paying high interest on borrowing this money. Then you go back to the cash buyer, and then you close on what's called the A to B, and then it's the B to C. So you close on the B to C, and then of course you make money. And this way, a lot of people like to do this because the cash buyer can't see how much money you're getting. So you could potentially get more than $10,000. But you have to pay for that money. You have to pay to borrow that money. And that's usually really expensive. All right? So those are the two ways that you can close on a deal. And that is what wholesaling is. You're just the middle person. You're the bird dog, as they call it, the house hunter, as I call it. You are finding a deal, and then you are selling it to you are selling the contract, because you don't own the house, remember. You own that contract. You're selling that to the cash buyer. So that's what is wholesaling. But again, the hard part is, how do you find that seller? How do you get them to sign the contract? How do you find that cash buyer? How do you get them to sign the assignment agreement to sell it to them? And then where do you find a closing attorney or a title company who's going to be okay with handling that whole transaction? So that's the hard part, and we're going to cover that on another video. But I'm Magic Mike, and I'll see you on the next one.